when it comes to a trademark, when it comes to branding, if you've got a profitable brand, if you've got products that are selling well under a certain name, and you go to sell that business, and in the due diligence process, the person who is going to acquire it realizes you don't have the trademark. And not only that, there's actually issues now surrounding the trademark. That could be a deal killer. So that could be the difference between 10 million and zero. So trademarks are absolutely a no-brainer. Patents you might spend, tens of thousands of dollars on. Trademarks, just a few $1,000s. And again, it could be a deal breaker if you don't own the rights to the brand.
You are listening to Power Marketing with Kevin Lee. Kevin and his agency Did It have helped thousands of businesses win through superior marketing, as have his books, articles, speaking engagements, and the E-Marketing Association Power Marketing podcasts. Here's Kevin.
I'm so happy to be catching up with Rich Goldstein, who I've known since either 86 or 87, something along those lines, when we were both at Stony Brook University, and had interesting visions even at that time about entrepreneurship and where our business lives would take us. So Rich is currently has a patent practice as a patent lawyer, and does a bunch of other things as well. So Rich, I'll let you give the elevator pitch of what you're up to every week and how you split your time.
Absolutely. Kevin, it's really great to be here. And yeah, I mean, you say 86, 87. I want to say like 97 or so that we were in college. It couldn't have been that long ago, right?
All right. So we're dating ourselves if we use the other numbers then.
Yeah. I mean, basically what I do is I run an IP law firm. I help people to protect their products and protect their brands. Essentially that's what my day job is, so to speak. But I also spend a lot of time on the road. I go to a lot of events. I speak at events, and I meet people. And when I go to events, I'll see people that I've met at other events that'll introduce me to new people. So a lot of my time is spent attending events. Relationships is a big source of my lead flow. And actually, one of the things that I love to do, which I'm working on right now, is throwing parties. Right now, I'm working on a party for Consumer Electronics Show, and I'm planning a big sweet party there. And I've just found that you can go and stand at a trade show booth for 3 days and stand there until your feet hurt, and no one remembers you. But if you throw a party, everyone remembers it. And then people come up to me all year long and say, or like, Rich, we don't know each other, but I was at your party. And so that's a bit about how I spend my time, how I split my time these days.
Sounds like a good marketing strategy. So some of the folks listening, they may be aware of sort of intellectual property, and I know certainly patents are a big chunk of what you do, but you also occasionally, when needed, will do trademark filings for folks as well. And not a lot of people don't necessarily know the difference. And I know it's a 101 level question, but protecting one's idea or business process is a little bit different than protecting one's logo or trademark. So for those folks who want to protect both of them, how should they articulate the difference in their heads?
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, just to understand the difference between patents and trademarks. So patents are really about physical products or software. They're about the thing that makes the product distinct. Some type of unique structure, some type of unique process, where trademarks are about branding. So, and that branding can be a name like Did It in a certain field, as being something that people associate with a certain one company. People realize that that's a company, that's an agency, so that's an example of branding that could be protected by trademark. It could also be a logo. It could be some type of color scheme that when people see that, they immediately think of a specific company. So trademarks are about protecting a brand, and in general, to your question about protecting the name versus the logo, you usually want to protect the name first, because essentially you want to prevent people from using a similar name, no matter how they portray it, no matter what logo they might use to portray it. You want to protect the name as a distinct thing. So sometimes people try to combine those two into one trademark application. Not a good idea. We should do what's called a word mark to protect the name. And kind of the second line of defense or offense is to protect the logo or the design. And then the benefit there is that even if someone has a very different word that they're using, but it looks like your design, then that's what that trademark on the logo mark would protect. Kind of like I remember in the 80s going into Manhattan, going to Canal Street and seeing some a Walkman type headphone set available for sale, and it didn't say Sony, it said Kobe, but it was the same type font, spaced apart letters. And so, of course, they could get away with that at a flea market type situation, but you'd never be able to sell that in a major chain store and a major electronics store, because it's likely to confuse people from that, from the Sony logo. Even though it doesn't say Sony, it's just the look of it was so similar that would tend to confuse people. So that's a trademark violation. So wrapping that up, the point is that you can protect the name, and separately you might want to protect the logo.
Great. And then obviously with patents, which unlike trademarks, which one can get an answer on super quick when you file, patents can take years and years between the patent application process and even finding out whether you were granted it or not, and multiple steps involved in prosecuting the patent and getting it all the way through the PTO.
Yep.
Then there's international patenting, which
Yes.
is, of course, another thing altogether. So, when a person is trying to decide, should they even call you to decide if what they've got, whether it's a business process,
Right.
a software process, a new product, if it's protectable, are there any guidelines before they should call you, or should they just call you?
Okay, well, I guess what that really goes to is the reason why you're getting IP. So I would say kind of the more traditional reason people seek IP is because they want to be able to stop competitors from doing something similar. Like they worry about, like, while they're operating their business, that there might be some event that happens where it would be valuable to have the patent or have the trademark to be able to stop a competitor from doing something or appropriating that IP. And that's kind of the traditional way of looking at it. That's the more traditional lens for, like, should I get a patent or should I not get a patent? Should I get a trademark? Should I not bother? But the more modern approach, and this is the one that really has come to light from the last few years of the M&A frenzy, is that if you have IP, any IP, it's going to increase the value that you get when you sell your business. So the best reason to get IP these days is that it will increase how much you get paid when you sell your business. It's kind of like if you have a profitable business and you were going to get paid some multiple on the profit, and maybe you were looking towards a $10 million acquisition, if you have a bunch of patents, you'll probably get 12 million, even if they're shitty patents, right? Even shitty patents will get you like 12 million. If they're good patents that will actually prevent competition from doing the same thing, then maybe instead of 10 million, you get 20 million. The point is, though, $2 million for essentially a name only patents that maybe you spent $50,000 on or $100,000 on, that's a 10 to 20 time my math there. That's a 20 to 40 time ROI, even if it's crappy. And if it's good IP, the type that gets you an extra 10 million, then now you're looking at a 50 to 100 time, or my math again is off here, 100 time or so ROI on what you spent to get those patents. So kind of the question of, like, whether you should do it or not has really morphed, in that it's not what you think it's about. It's not about, like, well, am I going to be able to even use this patent? against my competition. It's more like when you sell your business, you're going to get paid many times over what you invested in it. So kind of that's what makes it pay. And then one little footnote to that is when it comes to a trademark, when it comes to branding, if you've got a profitable brand, if you've got products that are selling well under a certain name, and you go to sell that business, and in the due diligence process, the person who is going to acquire it realizes you don't have the trademark. And not only that, there's actually issues now surrounding the trademark. That could be a deal killer. So that could be the difference between 10 million and zero. So trademarks are absolutely a no-brainer. Patents you might spend, tens of thousands of dollars on. Trademarks, just a few $1,000s. And again, it could be a deal breaker if you don't own the rights to the brand. So even superior to everything I just said about exit value, get a trademark. Just always get trademarks on the important branding that you have.
That's great advice, Rich. And I do remember one thing that when you put through one of my patent applications is you reiterated that time is of the essence, right? A window is open for a certain amount of time after you invent something, and you better get your patent application in. So for those folks who came up with something recently but not yesterday, they may want to look at the calendar and get moving pretty quickly, because they don't want to go past that period of time where it's no longer eligible for patenting.
Yeah, let's talk about that. So what it is that once you publicly disclose the invention, and that can happen in a bunch of different ways, writing something about the invention and having it on the web or in printed publication, having your product for sale. Once one of those things takes place, one of those public disclosures takes place, 1 year from that date, it's too late to ever apply for a patent in the US. And so actually the US is more forgiving than a lot of the rest of the world. In a lot of the world, once you publicly disclose it, it's immediately too late. If you haven't already applied for a patent, it's game over. So, but I see it more often in the US, and it usually comes about because people are launching a product. They have limited resources, which every entrepreneur has, right? You have to use your resources wisely. And it's a pretty reasonable decision to say, well, patents are expensive. Let me see how well the product does. And if it does really well, then I'll circle back around and I'll patent it. The problem is I have people often come to me 2 years after they've launched a product, and things are going really well. And they say, everybody's saying we need to patent this. And I ask them the question, which I'm afraid of the answer to, which is, well, how long have you had it out there? And they tell me it's been out there for 2 years. And well, I've got a client in front of me that is ready, willing, and able to pay, but I can't help them because it's just too late. So my advice is not always apply for a patent, but at least consider before you launch whether it's something that you might want to protect. And if it's not, then just go full force ahead with your marketing efforts and really get it out there and hit it hard. But if it is something you might want to protect, then you might want to look into what's the possibility of protecting it before you make it public.
That's great advice. Thanks, Rich. When it comes to potentially having a little bit of sort of fear into the competitors, and you want to be able to put patent pending, is that an area where a provisional patent might fit in? Because I know those are sort of a step in the direction of patenting, but not a full application. So I'd love to hear when you advise the use of that, if at all.
Yeah, so provisional patent application is like a stepping stone towards what's known as a utility patent. A utility patent is the type of patent that we typically think of when we think of an invention. We think of someone in their garage improved something, made it better. So it's different in some structural way, in some functional way. That's an improvement on things that existed before. That's a utility patent. And then if you want, you can take a halfway step toward that utility patent by filing what you mentioned, Kevin, a provisional patent application. Now, a provisional patent application essentially gets your foot in the door at the patent office, and it gives you a year to finish up the process and file that full utility patent application. So it could be done a little bit less formally than a utility patent application, and that's an advantage. But here's the caveat: is that the priority you get. So, like, you file that provisional, you get a priority date. It's like let's say we filed in December of 2022. So then, as long as you file the full application by December 2023, they'll consider it as if it was mostly filed December 2022. But the priority you get there, but toward 2022, is only as good as the application was well written. So you can file a provisional application. You could write up a couple of paragraphs and file it, and you'll get back a filing receipt that says your patent pending. But if you ever needed to rely upon that couple of paragraph description you put in there, it's not going to carry the day. So that's the thing to realize: is provisionals can be a valuable tool, but they're only as good as they are well written.
One more reason to call a professional. Luckily, they know how to find you.
Well, and if I meet a professional, I'll introduce them to them.
Yes, it's New York, so we have to do self-deprecating humor. It's required.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. It was ingrained in us, and if nothing else, then Seinfeld kind of taught us that we really need to do that.
Right. So, follow-up question. You've been pretty involved in the entrepreneurial ecosystem, going to a lot of conferences. Some of these conferences are marketing-specific conferences. Some of them are entrepreneurship. I remember, I think you, myself, and Jerry went to a entrepreneurship's conference in those days where we prefer not to think about exactly what the date was. But I think Michael Dell had just was a keynote at this Inc. conference or something. But clearly, you're still doing the conference circuit.
Yeah.
So what's the pulse of the ecosystem now? Certainly, the venture community's been a lot tighter with checks recently. But do you still sense a level of vibrance at these conferences with regards to level of entrepreneurship, level of invention, level of innovation?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's like at certain events, there's no talk of a recession. There's no talk of anything being different. It's full steam ahead. And I think, there's still a lot of money out there for new ventures, and maybe it's become a bit more selective. But for good ideas, the money still seems to be there. And even for acquisitions, the multiples have gone down a little bit compared to last year. But for healthy businesses, the M&A money is still there. Actually, it's there are companies that are just really hungry for good deals. They've seen enough bad deals at this point, and they're really just looking for those good deals. So yeah, absolutely. And by the way, I can't let that reference to the ACE convention just slide by.
That's
so yeah, that was March of 1988. I will admit to the date. And we went to San Francisco, and we went to the airport, and we literally got to the front of the airport at JFK 10 minutes before the flight time. And I remember the agent at the ticket counter's hands were shaking, trying to process our stuff and telling us, just run. Your bags aren't going to make it, but run. And we did. We ran. We got on the plane, and our bags did make it. And that was fun. Yes. And Michael Dell, I think at the time, he was the number 2 entrepreneur. No, he was the number 1. He had 250 million in sales. Can you imagine 250 million in sales for Dell? Like, that's such a fraction of what they became. And I think we met him briefly in an elevator. And he wasn't even 30 at the time, because it was a group for entrepreneurs under 30. And I think maybe he was even like 23 or something. So
it was obscene, whatever it was.
Yeah, absolutely. But I have to tell an even funnier story about our entrepreneurial past. This is just like, for someone who's involved in patents and innovation like myself, this is a little bit embarrassing and definitely self-deprecating. So in 1994, I had an office in my apartment in Staten Island, and Kevin, took the ferry and took the train to come out to see his friend Rich, and we were sitting in my office and he was proudly telling me about the internet and like how and the future he saw in the internet advertising. He's telling us how he was going to start an agency to deal with internet advertising. And so myself and my best friend at the time, we were kind of like, the Kevin, like, he's a smart guy, but I don't know about this internet thing. People like to play around on the internet. People don't spend money on the internet. So we naysayed it. And meanwhile, Kevin had the last laugh going on to create Did It and doing all kinds of amazing things in internet marketing. And but it's just really funny. Like I have this story about how I naysayed the internet, and Kevin was right.
Well, it's funny because I had the opportunity to join Google very early, but I was like, oh, no, I got my own company. And I joined at the time I was invited to join. I would have had a lot more zeros at the end of my bank account at this point, not because of salary, but because of options. But you only take one path.
Absolutely.
So a follow-up question on the sort of entrepreneurial ecosystem. A lot of folks don't necessarily have something that they can get IP on. I mean, they may get a brand name, they may get other stuff. And I've noticed you were speaking at I think it was an FBA Amazon related event, which of course, feels like a pretty shaky ecosystem because you're betting on Amazon continuing to permit you the freedom that they're permitting you now, which, may or may not be true in the future, but it's a thriving ecosystem of folks, either creating brand new products to push out as Amazon FBA or even, just tweaking existing products, getting them remanufactured or customized in some way. So I'd love to get your thoughts on that. Do you sort of feel like that's overhyped at the moment or that those are solid businesses people are building?
It's really weird. I mean, I agree with you fundamentally that that if you're building a business on Amazon, you're investing in someone else's platform. Then again, everything that we build, we're building on a spaceship that's traveling through space at 800,000 miles per hour, right? And we're falling towards the sun, and it's like, what is stable ground, right? I guess it's all relative. Maybe the thing that's lending stability to the Amazon platform is just the momentum of how many people are involved. You have millions of Amazon sellers, but yeah, I mean, I agree. And but it's kind of like, I'm also watching, not watching people invest heavily in their businesses, and building businesses on someone else's platform. But I've seen these acquisition deals. I mean, literally hundreds of acquisition deals where someone is coming along and buying their Amazon-based business for tens of millions of dollars. And some even hundreds of millions. I've seen some multi-$100 million acquisitions of an Amazon-based business, which literally it could just evaporate if Amazon flipped a switch and said, nope, we're not, we're suspending these accounts, or we're not doing Amazon FBA anymore. So seemingly it's grounded in thin air, but there's a lot of momentum to it. And so, I mean, I guess all the people who've gotten in and made a lot of money and gotten out, the question of whether it was a volatile space, it never even mattered to them.
Yeah, their check cleared already.
It check cleared, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because often when I talk to folks about Amazon, I talk to them about it from the perspective of a commerce search engine, right? But it's better than just a commerce search engine, because even though pretty much every Prime member starts their commerce search there, everyone else and half the Amazon Prime members start their commerce search on Google. And guess which platform has the best SEO in Google for products? Amazon. So you don't really have the choice as a brand owner as to whether you're going to be on the Amazon platform or not. Retailers obviously are stuck, but if you have a product that has your name on it or is somewhat distinct, you pretty much have to be on Amazon. Then you have to decide, obviously, from a marketing resource allocation perspective, how do you allocate resources across Amazon and Amazon sponsored listings, et cetera. But it is absolutely two bites at the apple, right? Because if you've got something unique, if you've got, red cashmere sweaters that are different, you have two chances of ranking it in Google now, because you can rank it on your own website, you can rank it on Amazon, but then you can probably go into the other marketplaces too, show up in Walmart and maybe even eBay, right? So a holistic strategy is often the right strategy when it comes to these marketplaces, even though you might love to hate Amazon.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And a lot of brands that I know are they have a Amazon presence, and they also have a Shopify store. Like there are multi-channel seems to be what's working well for people. And you mentioned Walmart too. A lot of the Amazon sellers I know are looking at Walmart as the sleeping giant. Like they have all of these distribution centers in terms of through the Walmart stores. They've got a small part of the market share at the moment, but they're the one to invest into if you're going to do Amazon and something else, like do a Walmart store, because there's a lot of untapped potential there.
Absolutely. So what has you excited about next year? Nobody knows if it's going to be a recession year or not. As you indicated, the conferences you're going to, it's not even coming up in conversation. So what has you excited about 2023?
Oh, good question. Well, I mean, like for me personally, the events are it's really coming together. It's kind of gone from 0% of my business to 70% of my business in about four years. So, and it's just continuing where there's just a certain critical mass where go to events, speak at events. I get invited to speak at other events that lead to other things and kind of bigger opportunities and new referral pathways. And so yeah, just I got a pretty packed schedule coming up the next few months, and I'm excited about it.
Great. Well, so as events go, because I did acquire the e-marketing association a few years back, and events were originally on my business plan, but then the pandemic hit, and I pretty much pushed that all the way to the back burner on that business plan. So I've got a trace in 2023. So I, tiptoe back into events with the e-marketing association at a hyper local level. Do I program a track at an existing conference and just sort of piggyback on their footprint, or do I put it off for another year and then stay virtual? So given that you're like the event party guy, you think event parties are superior to event content for that, or should we create a hybrid for 2023?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're dipping your toe back in, is do a party and collect the list.
I guess you can't go wrong that way, right? So what's the price point? You get it sponsored and make it free, or you're charging for entry?
Get it sponsored and people get in for free. Yeah. And
Cool.
I've found, like, the parties that I've thrown, it's like the ticket price would be pretty significant if we were charging the individual. So it's like we're getting a good amount of sponsorship, and it's because there's value. I mean, the real value is in curating the audience, is curating that is the whole multi-platform effect, where there's value that this one segment of people are getting by coming to the event, and then there are the people that want to meet those people because they're potential customers. So like I threw a party recently where one of my sponsors got a $40 million client. And it's one that they would not have met because they were not attending the regular event that my party was thrown around. So yeah, it's things like that I think, it's like, it's just a matter of connecting people. It's just another way to connect people, to connect people with people to become friends with, and connect people with customers. So that's what I enjoy, is connecting people in various ways.
Well, I guess that client you'll have for your next several sponsorship opportunities as well, given that success story, and maybe a big, an expensive bottle of scotch will show up for the holidays as well. I certainly hope so.
Absolutely.
Great. Well, it's so wonderful catching up with you. I look forward to seeing what you've got planned for the next year, and hopefully attending one of your parties.
That sounds great, Kevin.
Kevin Lee's Power Marketing is available on all your favorite podcast networks. Kevin loves helping businesses excel at marketing. Having marketing challenges? Just like Santa in The Miracle on 34th Street, if Kevin can't help you, he'll know someone who can. Find him on LinkedIn, subscribe, or follow.